This is The Sound of Small Business, brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. I'm JP Davidson, and these are the inspiring stories and hard-earned lessons of successful Canadian entrepreneurs. The RBC Small Business Panel Series features business owners and experts sharing their experiences and providing advice to entrepreneurs across Canada. In this episode, our focus will be on managing small business growth. We'll look at moving from working in the business to working on it through hiring and delegation, time management for busy entrepreneurs, and finding balance during periods of rapid growth. Today's panelists are Becca Perrin, co-founder and co-CEO of Pear, a line of modern home accessories, Cam Heaps, co-founder of Steam Whistle Brewing, and Candice Enman, president of Welch Group Consulting. Now here's panel moderator and senior director of client and business strategy for small business at RBC, Karen Svensson.
So you started your business, it became more and more successful, it expanded and grew. How did you keep a manageable pace of your business growth? Cam, shall we start with you?
Sure. It's a great question because a lot of people think, oh, geez, I'd love to grow at 100 or 200% if I could. Yeah. The challenge with most startup businesses that are growing at a rate that's unmanageable is they start to cause major fissures or cracks in different departments. Because an organization that's growing at triple digits, the amount of adaptation that's required within that department to handle that growth is very tough. I learned a great lesson from the wonderful folks at Ivy through a quantum shift program, which is really try to identify any cracks today because they're the ones that are going to cripple the organization in a year or two from now. So we spend a lot of time trying to position departments not for today's needs, but for tomorrow's. And that's largely what we've done.
Becca, your view on managing that growth, especially in those first few years?
Well, I think that aggressive growth is just part and parcel with growing a brand. I mean, I don't think that there was a point at which you became too busy. I mean, you're busy from day one and it becomes busy with each successive day and month and year after that. I think that the key is really making sure that with that aggressive and exponential growth, you're not losing sight of what people love about the product and the brand to begin with. And if we allow that to slip or to falter, that's what's really going to prevent any real, true, long-term sustainable growth. I mean, aggressive growth is great and it's fine and we all want it. And I wouldn't be shy of it or afraid of it. I would just be cognizant of the fact that with the growth that you are not undermining the quality and the reasons that you're there to begin with.
Candice, when you work with companies on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the things that you're helping them to think through strategically about that managing their growth?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, it's really about having that plan in place. I think it's really hard to grow exponentially without a plan, right? You need to start thinking about your sales and marketing efforts and how you're going to manage the business from an operational standpoint. And what about the human capital, the talent that you need to bring into the company? So you need to look at all those pieces and say, how are you going to bring it together? So when we work with clients, we're trying to really understand the risk that may impede them from implementing that growth strategy and elevating the company, I guess, to that next level so that they don't run into so many hiccups along the way. So it's really about kind of the strategy behind growth and really analyzing the risks that are inherent in the business that would put a brake on that growth pattern.
Candice brought up the idea of, workforce and hiring and that growth piece. So I wonder what thoughts and recollections you have about when you were in those early stages of growth and as you've continued to grow, how you make decisions about what you're both co-founders, what you hold on to manage and what you delegate and hire other people to be involved in. Any thoughts, Becca?
In terms of delegating things, no one will do it, or I shouldn't say no one will do it to your ability, but they may not, and that has to be okay because
that's just your perception.
That's releasing some of the control of some of those tasks and roles is critical to allowing you to grow, but it's also something that you have to be okay with. As people say, if it's done to 80%, that's got to be good enough because it's really not worth that 20% extra struggle and stress. I mean, you really have to be able to delegate and to trust. And we have worked hard to create an amazing team, a tight team of people that feel that they understand why we're all there and the reason that the company exists and what we're here to do. And we're all aligned to that sort of North Star. And if we all understand it and agree on it and understand our role in sort of leading to that North Star, then it's very empowering for people. And we make a conscious effort to empower our team to be able to make decisions. As you grow, you have to start relinquishing some of the control and ownership over parts of the business.
So there comes a certain point in time where, as a business owner, you don't necessarily have all the skill set to run the business. So you need to bring on a team that can do that with you.
One of my biggest learnings has been to ask for a lot of help, because we had a great idea and that idea has founded the company and it's the product that we create, but we are not experts in supply chain or in operations or in legal or in HR, and there's a million areas that we need advice. So some of the best advice I have received has been to ask for advice and to seek out as many different people to talk to. And if we're going to grow this business and be smart and strategic and have this company be around for a long time, and we have our own kind of advisory board now, informal, but it's something that's really, really important to sort of formulate as you grow, because yes, we are not experts by any stretch.
Any thoughts from you, Cam?
My partner, Greg, and I's strategy is very simple. Hire people that are better than us to do each of the roles that need to be done, and then we do what we're good at, which is direct strategic direction and making sure the Army has what it needs every day to execute. I mean, I hate to use the military references, but they apply very much to business. And the general should be figuring out the plan, and the staff should be executing. And if we get tied up in executing, then we're not making sure the plan is strong.
Right.
And then the whole thing falls apart.
Okay. So what do you look for? You know, how do you bring people into your business that can help be part of the team to drive it forward? Cam, why don't we start with you?
Well, we're all about heart. So if you have the right attitude and a love for beer, and then with that, we can fill in pretty much anything else, assuming you have a background in something. That's critical for us. We hire and fire for attitude.
Great.
Yeah.
Becca, anything different?
No, it's very simplistic, but we really want nice people around our company. You need to have a good attitude. You need to be a nice person. You need to be really hardworking, willing to just jump in and do a million different things, because I can assure you that the people that have been with our company from the very beginning don't do anything today that looks like what they did when they started. We've done all kinds of different things and we've chopped and changed, and it's really gratifying to see the people that are still with the company sort of blossom into these new, very senior roles within the company. I'd say also very important is to have an appreciation and an understanding for what we do and a love for what we do.
I think attitude and passion, and that's really important when you're hiring. But I think even the type of people that you are hiring, I think a lot of companies, when they're first starting out or they're in their business for 2 to 5 years, they think that they need to hire full-time employees. And that's not necessarily the way. Like the whole contract employee movement, it's really changing how people are engaging with their employees, right? So people can be part-time, they can be freelance. There's whole, virtual human resource teams so that they can come in and help you with employee management. There's virtual CFOs that can come in and help you, kind of with that strategy and coming up with your forecast and trying to get financing for your business. So I think that's the other thing that small businesses should take into consideration. So you're really looking at who the person is, because I truly do believe that if they have the right attitude, then you can train them to do the role, but also think about the mix of employees that you have. I think that's really important.
So that's interesting. All kinds of different options in terms of how do I think about building this team. Any sort of tips or insights on how do I choose between an outsourcing, a part-time person, paying overtime to existing employees, adding net new employees?
So if it's a short-term issue that you're having, then I would say you might want to pay overtime to an employee. But if you see that issue continuing where you really just need to staff up, then you may need someone full-time in your business. I think where some of these virtual contractors really tend to help is when you don't have the internal expertise, but you just don't need that person on a full-time basis. So for example, an external bookkeeper would be a good example of that. I brought up the HR component of that because we have clients who end up in disputes with employees, or they need to, work on their compensation package, or, there's so many issues. They can bring in someone at a fraction of the cost rather than hiring someone full-time or even engaging a lawyer. On the virtual CFO side as well, it really works. You might not have the skill set internally to go out and help get financing or apply for grants or help to build that strategy. And those people are as you need them. So they're not necessarily on your payroll. So you can get highly skilled people at a fraction of the cost of hiring someone full-time or going elsewhere.
We've worked with part-time CFOs in the past, and it's
Fantastic.
an amazing way to have somebody bringing in that type of skill set, and it's not on a full-time basis. And then similarly in our design, we have a ton of design, and we have lots of interns and young designers coming up the ranks, and that's a particular role that requires a real point of view, and sometimes it's nice to sort of try them out and start on contract and see how it goes, and if they work well, then they might stay on full time. It just provides flexibility and the ability to kind of test people out before making that real commitment to hiring.
Well, and there's a lot of programs where you can get access to labor for free through some of the universities, right? Where you're hiring certain graduates to come in for a 6 to 8 week program, and you pay them what you can, if you can.
Right.
But they're there to get experience
So it's
in
a win-win.
their business. It's a win-win.
Yeah. So some great tips. Thank you both very much. So far we've talked about growth, we've talked about hiring and recruitment. There's so many things that you can be doing on any given day. And so how do you, as you're making choices on a daily basis, make sure that you're focused on the right things? So any tips around how do you think through managing yourself as that general leading the charge of the team? Cam?
We're generally people first. So my partner and I spend a lot of time dealing with the staff and dealing with any of their specific issues. Again, making sure they have what they need or they're getting the information they need.
Yeah.
As far as prioritizing what to do on a given day, basically if it's critical to moving down the track of the plan you've articulated, then it gets a high priority. So I'm notoriously horrible with email because I'll just skim through them, and if it's not a high priority, then it's probably not that important.
Becca, other thoughts?
I make a lot of lists, and then I rewrite my lists at the end of each day or the next day because I need to see it. And even if they're little things, I need to see it all sort of written out. Now, I know the high sort of strategic priorities of the business, which are always sort of paramount in my mind. And as you said, those are the kind of things that I always need to be moving ahead and moving along. I find a lot of my time is now spent with people, like managing people, having meetings, making sure they're able to get what they need done and get my input, and that I'm training them sufficiently so that I need to be involved in that sort of less and less. But I find that the larger we get, the more I am pulled into the operational and management of people. And it's really hard to make sure that I'm really staying true and focused on the stuff that ultimately is why we're all there.
So the people side is an important part to both of your businesses, but I know we were talking before we started the cameras rolling, and both of you have young children at home. So it's a lifestyle, being that business owner. And what are some of the ways, as you've got fast-growing families, growing businesses, how do you balance that personal life, work life, business out for both yourself and your partners and those around you?
For me, there's two things. One is I have a very strong wife. And two, we really believe, my partner and I believe in a life-work balance. So, we don't want to see people working overtime every day. Yeah, when things come up that require some extra effort, everyone's willing to do it. But we don't want that to be a daily thing. So we really promote people enjoying work. We have a very familial feel at work. So we sort of have two families in our lives, and also getting home and enjoying your family.
Is that energizing both to yourself and to the people around you?
Man, I get more energy from my kids than I could ever begin to explain. And I get a ton of energy from the people I work with because their passion it's contagious and addictive. So
Becca, how about you? I know we talked a little bit about the beginning of your business, and it literally was starting a business and starting a family at the same time.
Literally
How
at
does
the same
that
time.
journey?
No, it was not easy, and it's still not easy. What I'll say is, as you said, with your team members, I mean, we're very supportive and encouraging to, you leave early when you have to leave early, and you've got to pick so-and-so up for ballet. Okay, great. You know, that's just the way we work. It's the way Jen and I operate, and it's the way we ensure that the rest of the team is as well. When it comes to managing it myself, I have an amazing husband and an amazing network of people, family that help, because I wouldn't be able to travel and do the things that I do without it. But I actually think we're doing great things for our kids in showing them what we're doing, because we not only love working, but we're creating a business, and we're showing them that there's nothing that you can't do.
Any other thoughts on, you're running a fast-paced business, you're growing a lot. Any sort of tips on how do you prevent burnout?
You know, before you get to the burnout is, how do you know if your balance is off?
How do you know?
If you're not having fun, your balance is off. Because doing what we do with the people we do it should be fun. Having fun is critical.
It's critical.
Yeah.
Just creates the
So
energy.
if you're not having fun, you need to change your balance, or you need to change your business, or you need to change your career.
Right. Things you see, either yourself, because you're a busy woman yourself in terms of the practice you're running.
See, look at the smile. She's having fun.
Yeah.
I always laugh because I actually find balance really hard. And sometimes I tell people it's almost impossible, right? But for me, it's all about flexibility, and you have to prioritize. So when I had my kids, I just said, I'm leaving work at 5, and I spent my time with my kids. And if I had to go back to work at night, then I would go back to work, because that's just what you do. So for me, it's all about being flexible. And I still do the same thing today. So I go to work early, I pick up my boys from school, and you just make it work. And I truly believe that there's ebbs and flows to everything in life. So I think it's important, and I think everyone would agree that it takes a community, it takes a village to kind of raise your children and to bring that balance. But I recently did something at the University of Ottawa, and we were talking to some of the graduates. And I think when people talk about balance, they always talk about family, and they talk about work, and they forget about themselves. So I think that's also really important. So as an entrepreneur, I think you have to rejuvenate. I think you need to take time and recharge your own batteries. And whether that is just reading a book or going to the gym, I think that time away is important.
The discussion today has been fantastic, and we've learned so much from our panelists and their experiences. To wrap up our conversation, I'd like to ask each panelist to share their final quick tip and advice on how business owners can successfully grow their business and make their someday happen. So, Becca, why don't we start with you? Last quick tip.
I would really say that to not hesitate to ask for lots and lots of help and guidance, because as we mentioned, you have a great idea, but you don't have all of the ideas and answers. And it is so important to be educated and to really not be afraid to ask for help.
Cam?
A quick piece of advice for business: shoot for the stars. Think big and go for it, because it's a lot of fun that way. And if you shoot big, it's amazing. When you set a plan, plans have a strange way of becoming a reality.
Yep, you imagine it, you bring it to life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Candace?
Yeah, so I sound like the really pragmatic one, but I'm going to say have a plan, because without a plan, it's really hard to manage that growth. And then I'm going to say, and really echo Becca, that you need to take risk in your company to grow.
This has been The Sound of Small Business, brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. For more advice and stories of small business success, subscribe to the podcast in iTunes or search for The Sound of Small Business wherever you find podcasts. You can also visit rbc.com/buildingbusiness for advice and tips on how to start, manage, or grow your business. Thanks for listening. This podcast series is intended as general information only and is not to be relied upon as constituting legal or other professional advice. No endorsement of any third parties or their advice, opinions, information, products, or services is expressly given or implied by Royal Bank of Canada or any of its subsidiaries.